Hello, citizen of the internet. It's very nice to see you. If this is your first time watching one of my videos or checking out my channel, my name is KatFtz, and I make videos regarding ASMR, fashion content, and a lot regarding thrifting. So if being sustainable is something you enjoy, or maybe you have tinnitus and you want to hear a bunch of soothing sounds, this might be the place for you. My goal is to get to 100 subscribers by the end of this year. Currently, we're at 30 subscribers, so we're pretty much there. If you just cross your fingers and cross your toes and close your eyes and gaslight yourself every day that you're doing something important with your life, we're pretty much there. So you might as well hit subscribe and like this video too. I've made this video a couple times and I'm just gonna rip off the band-aid because I thought sharing a story time would be really interesting, and let alone this specifically is pretty unique. So this is the story of how Governor of Maine, Janet Mills, clocked my ass because I have a degree in liberal studies. Before I start explaining everything, I just need to preface that I'm not trying to spread any hate. I'm pretty left-leaning myself. I don't think this was supposed to be inherently bad, the comment that was made, and I'll get into that later, but I just want to specify and make it very clear, I'm not trying to bash Governor Janet Mills, I think it's fantastic that she's the first female governor in the entire state of Maine. That's something that we should be super proud of, just to be seeing. As someone who considers themselves to be a feminist, I will take that as a win. I just thought this interaction was super off-putting and very bizarre, and sometimes I feel like my entire life is a joke, and this just kind of was the cherry on top of that opinion. So let's get started. Where I grew up specifically in Maine was a very high income town, and the culture really was going to the school I went to was just, you need to go to a super low acceptance rate school that's very expensive out of the state of Maine, and you shouldn't worry about money because this should be something that your parents can afford, or you should be able to have in scholarships because you've taken a lot of APs and you have a ton of extracurriculars. The school I went to specifically was really good at athletics and really good at a bunch of other very important things. I'm not going to go into detail just because personally, going to school was something that I really struggled with. I had an IEP, I have ADHD, I have depression, and that's not something that I'm ashamed of. That's something that I'm really glad that I have because I think it makes me a super fun person. There are downsides, of course. I'm not saying that, being mentally ill is bad, but being mentally ill isn't always great either, and that's okay. That's why I have medication, that's why I go see a therapist, and that's why I'm making this video, because there's nothing wrong with being a little bit mentally ill, but that's besides the point. I had a horrible time in high school, and when the pandemic happened, I was a senior, and I cried. I was so excited. I was struggling so hard to get up and go to school. And when I found out that everybody got to stay home, I couldn't have been more excited about the whole thing. So this caused my GPA to go from a 1 to below a 1 overnight, because I stopped doing homework and I didn't go to any of my Zoom classes because first off, I didn't understand. And second off, I'd rather sleep than do my schoolwork, because that's what I wanted to do more of the time. Thank goodness I'm okay now, but at that time I was in a really dark headspace, and thank goodness I'm out of it now. I took a gap year when I graduated from high school. I don't know how I graduated. Honestly, I think I got pity passed, and the two teachers that were about to fail me were like, dude, you seem pretty nice. We're gonna give you the pass. I don't understand. I think if I was in any other grade period before the pandemic, there's no way I would have graduated on time. And that's something that I don't really feel good about, but in that point in time where I was mentally, doing anything was difficult, and that obviously includes schoolwork. So of course my grades were going to dip. I can't change that. That's then, this is now. So I took a gap year when I graduated, and at the time I had a friend of mine who, super sweet, she was going to Farmington and she was going to become a teacher, and she did end up becoming a teacher. She did end up going to the University of Maine. That makes a lot of sense. No tea, no shade to Farmington, but I don't think I would have thrived there. But she, at the time, was telling me that I might like going there. So I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do in life. I was interested about getting a higher education. So on a whim, I applied to Farmington and I didn't hear back from them for months. So I ended up calling their admissions, asking what was going on, and they ended up telling me that I didn't get in because my GPA was super low because of the pandemic and because of me being very sad. So they suggested that I go to a community college, and I was super hesitant at first just because, again, being in an environment when I was in high school about going to a prestigious college and spending copious amounts of money, the idea of going to community college seemed like something that was beneath the culture. It was very frowned on. Like, it was something like if you went to community college, you were failing yourself already, which is not true at all. And I quickly learned that because education is priceless. It doesn't matter what school you get it from, and community college is incredible. If you're watching this and you're wondering if you should go to a community college or go to a state university, my goodness, go to a community college first, get an idea of what you want to do, and then if you want to go to a state school, do it. Or if you want to go to an Ivy, or if you want to go to some niche school out of state, go for it too. But if you're on the fence and you're questioning about whether or not you want to go to college at all, you want to go to a community college, because I kid you not, the amount of debt that you will leave with is absolutely horrendous and should be a crime. It's horrible. So the point is that I went to community college on a whim. It was very quick, my admission process, and I was surprised that I was even able to get on board housing at the community college that I went to, just because I went and applied for all my classes and got everything all set up a week before my fall semester started, which is absolutely insane now. That's super unheard of, and I'm very thankful for my dad, who helped me throughout the whole process, and my mom cheering me on. Even though she was moving states at the same time, there was a lot of hectic stuff happening in my life, and to go to community college and to pursue a higher education definitely has made me the person I am today so far. I'm very thankful. I went to community college between the years of 2021 to 2024. So yes, it did take 3 years for me to get my 2-year degree. No, I'm not ashamed of that at all. I don't think there should be any finish line or deadline to get a degree. I want to go get my bachelor's, and I do see myself doing that. But I definitely will say that if I go back to school, it's going to be one class semester at a time, just because going to school full time and living on campus is really stressful and really a lot. If you can tell by my eyes, and if you also went to community college with me, you know what I'm talking about. I don't need to speak more. My eyes are doing all the talking. Being the chatty Cathy that I am, while I was going to Southern Maine Community College, I somehow stumbled into student government. This happened on a complete whim. Someone that I was going to school with at the time suggested that I should do it. I was really interested in marketing at the time, and there was a public relations role that was opened up, so I ended up running for it, and then I got the position, and that's how I got into student government itself. I honestly had an incredible time doing it, and I had always wanted to do student government in high school, but when you're super sad, it's really hard to do anything except the bare minimum. So that obviously didn't include student government. So when the opportunity came, of course I wanted to try it. So first year I was there, didn't do student government. Second year I did. My third year, on a whim, I decided to run for president, and I got the position, which was surprising, but also I did run unopposed, so I'm not surprised that I won. But also, I don't know, people could have run their own name. It is what it is. If I might add, being in public relations was super fun. I actually ended up meeting Janet Mills prior. My first time being in student government, she came to the SMCC and spoke a little bit, and I actually have a picture of me and her. I was super surprised that I was meeting her that day, and this is not my best picture, but certainly not my worst. This is my worst. I'm sorry, Mom. Anyway, I was super ecstatic to meet Janet the first time I met her, just because being a woman, I think being in government is something that is really, really cool. It's really cool. I love the fact that I get to vote in every election when almost not even a century ago, women weren't even allowed to vote. I definitely think that if you have ever considered about being in any government position, just run and try for it. Speak your truth, shoddy. Even if it's local government, you'll make a lot of change. Me being in student government, I made a lot of change over at SMCC. Very, very little ones, but who cares? Trying is better than not trying at all. You can get on your little soapbox and speak your truth, but your actions will always speak louder than your words. And that's honestly how I ended up getting into it, because be the change that you want to see. My goodness, do it. Same year that I am graduating from Southern Maine Community College, I am also the president of the student government. What I didn't know when I got the position is that the president of the student government has a speech at the graduation. Kind of cool. Wasn't aware of that. So I started preparing my speech, and I came to quickly realize that the guest speaker was no other than Maine Governor Janet Mills. Oh my goodness! And when I heard the news, I was super ecstatic because I had met her previously, so it'd be kind of cool to see her again. And when I told my parents, they were like, you can make a connection, get to know her better, and I like the idea of that. But also, you have an entire state to worry about, and you have things that you need to do, and I was just excited to potentially see her again and to say thank you for making community college free for everyone now. It's fantastic. I think in a perfect world, community college should be tuition free everywhere. I will say though, if you did not know this, I'm going to preface this because a lot of people did not know this when they started coming to Southern Maine Community College, when they started doing out free tuition. Housing, room and board is not a part of tuition. Your housing is an entirely separate cost. So if you're planning on going to a community college, please be aware that you will have to pay for your room and board out of pocket. You might get money off with FAFSA, but that does vary from person to person and your income. I'm just giving that preface because I saw a lot of people my last year at Southern Maine Community College come in super excited to be there and then getting their housing bill, realizing they couldn't afford it, and then having to leave. It broke my heart. It was actually super sad to witness. And I don't feel like this is talked about enough. I know this doesn't pertain to the story, but I just need to share that because if you didn't know, now you know. Put money aside if you're thinking about doing that, okay? Off topic, let's keep going. It took me about a month to fully write my speech because I don't know about you all, but me personally, when it comes to hearing a speech at graduation, I feel like they all sound the same and they're all very, very interesting. Let's say you're basically hearing the same speech in different fonts every single year. Thank you so much for X, Y, and Z. I'm very glad X, Y, and Z be free, ABC. It's a graduation speech is pretty cut and dry. So I just wanted to include in my speech that I was super glad that I went to community college and how it changed me for the better, and that if you have the opportunity, go for it, do what makes you happy, and you'll find happiness. I thank Janet Mills for helping make community college free tuition, and I kept it very short and dry. If you really want to see it, I have a link below. It'll bring you over to my Instagram and you can watch my whole speech. You can see I'm there. I don't know. I was super stressed out that entire day, and I'm going to tell you the whole thing. Let's run through it. The day of my graduation, I wake up immediately stressed just because communication was very interesting that day, and I didn't know where I was going, and I wasn't sure where I was going to park my car. It was also in the middle of downtown Portland at the Civic Center, and if you've been in downtown Portland at all, you already can feel your whole body tensing up on where on earth you're going to park. Okay? I love Portland. Do not get me wrong. It's very pretty. I don't know how people are affording to live there right now, but it's very pretty. But there's not enough parking, and there is parking if you're willing to sell your soul. So I'm already like, it's an hour drive for me to get up, get in my whole cap and gown, get in my car, drive down to Portland. I had family meeting, but I had to be at the Civic Center at a certain time, way before anybody else, because I was walking on with all the heads of the department at Southern Maine Community College, along with Janet Mills, to be on the stage giving my speech. So I wasn't going to walk in with my class, which kind of a bummer, but it is what it is, and I will take it. I had a good scream in the car. I'm going to show this video right here. It was rough. Once I get to the Civic Center, I am in a separate room than all of my peers because I'm with all the heads of the departments of different majors at the community college, along with me and a bunch of other people. And then there's also Janet Mills. So there's a bunch of people who are chit-chatting. There's water bottles, little snacks in the corner. It's kind of that vibe, And I see her from the corner of my eye, and I think to myself, I've already spoken to Janet Mills. I know she's a busy woman. I don't know if I want to interact with her, because I don't want to be the kind of person that's like, hey, do you remember me from 2 years ago? Of course she's not going to remember me from 2 years ago. She's the governor of Maine. She has things to worry about, and I'm not one of them, and that's okay. I'm fine with that. It's okay. But then I got a text message from my mom, and she was like, you're doing such a good job, and I'm so proud of you, and you should say hello to Janet Mills, and I love you. And I'm like, okay, Mom, I love you too. So I looked at the room around me, and I was like, put down the phone, start chatting with people. Let's do this. So I ended up going up to Janet Mills. Something that I really admire is that all humans, even though we live on the same planet, everyone goes through a different life experience. So why do I want to ask you, how are you? How is the weather? What's going on today? When I could ask you questions like, what moment do you think really shaped you into the person you are today? What made you decide to do the things that you want to pursue? How do you define happiness? Things like that, because you're going to get a better answer, and I would rather know that about you than to ask, what is your favorite color? I don't know. I think that's just me. Whatever. So I go up to Janet Mills, and I introduce myself, and I asked her, I was like, did you want to become the governor of Maine? Because I don't know a single kid that has woken up and been like, yes, today I will decide to dedicate my entire life to government and being a civil servant. I've not met a single person like that. If you do, that's your life, not mine. So obviously I was very curious to ask her, why did you want to become the governor of Maine? How'd you fall into this? Is this where you saw yourself? How'd you end up here? And she kind of flips around the question and doesn't really answer it. She's like, I'm going to explain that in my speech. But I want to know about you. Like, who are you? Like, how'd you get into this? And what did you get your degree in? And, I tell her a little bit about myself, and I tell her that I got a degree in liberal studies, and she listens to me attentively, but her face shifts when I say liberal studies. it goes from to. Do you know what I mean? And I finish talking, and she looks at a head of a department she's also chatting with. And then she looks at me, and she goes, "Do you want a side of fries with that?" Now, in that moment, I thought that was really funny. I cannot believe that the governor of Maine just told me, along the lines of, put the fries in the bag. Do I want a side of fries with that? That's really funny. I won't deny. That's funny. However, having a liberal studies degree, fun fact, you can do a lot with it. Also, another fun fact, it's not a useless degree. No degree is useless. Her comment implied that my degree that I went 3 years for, not 2, 3 years, took my time, graduated with a 3.0. I left with honors when I previously, in high school, had a GPA below 0, and then was told by the governor of Maine practically all the work that I had done was pointless and that I needed a side of fries. What? I didn't really talk to her after that. I was just kind of taken aback. I decided to, do my own thing, talk to other people. Can't really continue a conversation after hearing that. So yeah, talked to other people, went on stage, and she actually brings me up in her speech, and I can clip that if I can find the video, and she mentions me. So she does bring me up in her speech that we, chatted with each other. So this conversation was real and did occur. But when I mentioned it to other people throughout the day after my graduation, nobody really thought it was funny. I thought it was funny at the time because I didn't really get a lot of sleep previously and also was on a lot of adrenaline because I was about to finish something that I was super proud of, and it was strange. It was also really weird because a week after, I did a women's leadership program with some very cool women in the state of Maine, and we got to meet a bunch of really cool women who had different positions of power within the state of Maine. And then at the very end of the week, I met Janet Mills again, and I understand if you don't remember me from 2 years ago from one photo we took, but you mentioned me by name in my speech, in your speech, and now you're seeing me again at the state capitol, and I mention it, and you ignore me? This woman ignored me. I think it was because she didn't expect me to be there. Hot take. I might be completely wrong, but that's how it felt when I was there. I also need to preface that Southern Maine Community College has a graduation rate of 25%. It might be 30 now, but it's 20 to 30%. Not a very high score. A lot of people end up dropping out due to financial reasons, or because they end up transferring, or because they only need a certificate. So that does make sense of why there is such a low percent, but not a lot of people who end up going to Southern Maine Community College even end up getting a degree. So the fact that I dedicated myself to getting this degree to only be told that, do I want a side of fries with that, is absolutely absurd. I'm sorry. I'm proud of what I did, and I thought it was a really funny interaction looking back on it, but it kind of makes you think. I don't know. Anyways, it was really interesting seeing her the following week after, but I already explained that. So we'll just leave it at that. Moral of the story, if you ever feel like you're having a bad day, just remember that the governor of Maine, Janet Mills, clocked my ass because I got a degree in liberal studies and asked if I wanted a side of fries with that. So maybe life isn't that bad. Or maybe it is. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I'll see you very soon. Okay, bye.